The smell of coffee and perfume was starting to make my head hurt. Or maybe it was the fact that I had been sitting alone for 20 minutes on a blind date that was never going to happen. The bistro was loud. People were talking over each other, laughing, clinking glasses. The sound bounced off the brick walls and drowned out the soft jazz playing in the background. The lights were warm and low. Every table was full. Mine was the only one with an empty chair. I checked my watch again. 7:25 p.m. My sister had set this up. "She's perfect for you," she said. "You need to get out of job sites and into real life. Right now, real life looked like me in a gray t-shirt and jeans. Dust still on my sleeves, getting stood up while couples shared dessert around me. I was not surprised. Lately, my life was just work and sleep. I checked load-bearing walls for cracks. I argued with contractors. I slept 4 hours a night and called it good. I was not exactly what people pictured when they heard the words dream date. I sighed, pushed my chair back, and stood up. My knee hit the table, and the silverware rattled. A waiter rushed by with a tray of martinis, and I stepped out of the way without thinking. I stepped too far. My leg bumped the next table, and then I was falling sideways into the booth behind me. I landed hard on the leather seat across from a woman who was definitely not my date. She did not look up. The table between us was covered in blueprints. She had them spread out like a map, corners pinned under a sugar jar, a salt shaker, and her elbows. She was muttering under her breath, words tumbling out fast and quiet. 2 weeks. I cannot do this in 2 weeks. It is not possible. I started to slide back out of the booth. "Sorry," I said. "I fell into your seat. My mistake." She looked up. I stopped moving. Her hair was long and dark, waves falling over her shoulders. Her eyes were deep and tired, the kind of tired that does not go away after one good night of sleep. She wore a bright, floral dress that did not match the stress rolling off her in waves. She looked at me like she was trying to bring me into focus. Then she said, very clear, "You're late." I froze, half standing. "I'm sorry?" "The contractor," she said. She tapped a red fingernail on the blueprint. "You were supposed to be here at 7. I have been staring at this sheer wall for 20 minutes, and it still looks like a map to hell. Sit down." I looked over my shoulder at my empty table. Then I looked back at her. I should have told her the truth right then. I should have said I was Rhodes Hernandez, structural engineer, not the contractor she was waiting for. I should have gone home to my silent apartment and cheap dinner. But my eyes dropped to the drawing under her elbow. Even upside down, I could see the numbers. The load calculation on the main support beam was wrong by a lot. If she built it like that and people stood on that upper level, the roof would fail the first time a heavy snow came. I sat down. "You're looking at the static load," I said, pointing at the page. "You need the live load too if you want people on that mezzanine." She stared at me. Then she looked at the print. Then back at me. A slow flush started at her throat and moved up. You're the guy," she said, "the one Sutton recommended." "I'm Rhodes," I said. That part was true. She let out a breath like a tire losing air. "Thank God, I'm Meline, and if you tell me this building is condemned, I am going to cry into this very expensive pasta." I watched her hands as she reached for her glass. They shook, just a little. I knew that shake. I saw it in my own fingers after long nights on bad jobs. "Let me see the specs," I said. The waiter tried to come take our order twice. Meline waved him away both times and asked for coffee, strong. 2 cappuccinos showed up with perfect foam and no food. I reached for my wallet out of habit. She put her hand on mine. Her touch was light but sure. "Put it away," she said. "You already saved my roof. Coffee is on me. It is not a rescue, it is a truce." I slid my wallet back into my pocket. I pulled a thin pen from behind my ear. I never went anywhere without one. I turned the blueprints so they faced me and started to mark them up. The project was big. The ironworks, an old iron foundry by the river she wanted to turn into a wedding venue and community space. The city was giving her a deadline. Fix it or lose it. The drawings were a mess. I circled the bad beam numbers. I drew a new steel bracket for the east wall. I showed her where she needed to move her exits to pass fire code. I worked the way I always did. Calm. Direct. No sugar. She watched every mark, her eyes moving where my hand moved. Once in a while she asked a question. Not to challenge me, but to understand. Smart questions. Real questions. Time slid past. The noise in the bistro softened as people paid and left. The lights dimmed a little more. When I finally capped my pen, the room was almost empty. "You're good," she said softly. Her eyes were on my face, not the paper. "Very good." "I do my job," I said. I rested my hand on the edge of the blueprint. "But this is a lot, Malene. You have rot in the subfloor here. The trusses up top are questionable. You are looking at 50,000 in steel alone." Her shoulders dropped. The light behind her eyes went out like someone had flipped a switch. "I do not have 50,000, she whispered. "I have much less than that." "Then you do not have a venue," I said. It came out flat and blunt. That was my flaw. Physics did not care how much you wanted something. Gravity never gave a discount. She pulled the drawings back toward her with stiff hands. "Right," she said. "Thank you for the estimate. I assume you will send me a bill." I looked at her. Really looked at her. Her grip on the table was so tight her knuckles were white. Her jaw was clenched. She was not breathing right. She was drowning, and I had just dropped a weight on her chest. "I am not the contractor," I said. She stopped moving. "What?" "I am not the guy Sutton sent," I said. "I sat at the wrong table. My date stood me up over there." I jerked my head toward table 4. Silence fell between us. Her eyes widened. I saw the whole chain hit her face. Embarrassment, anger, confusion, all of it. "You just did an hour of structural work for free," she said. "I could not let you build that mezzanine," I said. "It would have killed someone." She let out a broken little laugh. "Well," she said, "thank you for saving a life. Now I get to go tell my staff they do not have a job. Great trade." She started shoving papers into a worn leather bag. The movement was sharp, then slower as the fight seemed to drain out of her. She sank back against the booth, smaller. I stood up. I should have left. I had done my part. I fixed the danger. Time to go home. But my feet stayed where they were. She looked up at me with red, tired eyes. She studied my face, the dust on my clothes, the lines around my mouth. She did not look away. "You're not leaving," she said. It sounded like a fact. "No," I said. "Why?" she asked. "Because you missed a stress fracture in the foundation on page 4, I said, "and because I have nothing better to do tonight." She held my gaze. The corner of her mouth tugged up just a little. "Your eyes tell me you want to stay," she said. "My eyes are tired," I said. "That is all." "Stay," she said. "I will buy you another coffee. Then you can tell me how to fix page 4 without $50,000. I sat back down. And that was how sitting at the wrong table on a failed blind date turned into the start of the most important night of my life. The ironworks smelled like rust and old rain. 3 days after the bistro, I told myself I was only going there to drop off the report I had typed up. Just a professional follow-up. Do the right thing. Then walk away. That was the lie I repeated all the way across town. The ironworks sat on the edge of the river, a huge brick box with tall, dirty windows and a sagging sign over the main doors. It looked like an old cathedral made for machines instead of people. I parked my truck next to a dumpster full of broken drywall and stepped inside through a side door. The main hall stopped me cold. High steel beams arched overhead. Dust hung in the air like fog. Light pushed through the windows in long bands, catching motes as they floated. The space had a strange beauty, even with the mess. In the center of the room stood a man in a dark suit, his voice echoing off the metal and brick. "You are out of time, Malene," he said, smooth and sharp at the same time. "The inspection is Friday. This place is a hazard. The city will shut you down. Sell it to me, and I will take care of the debts." I knew who he was before he even turned. Sutton Allen, developer, city council member, the kind of man who bought tired buildings cheap after the city bled the owners dry. I had seen his name on big projects and ugly headlines. Meline stood in front of him in work boots and jeans, a flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves, hair pulled back in a loose tie. She looked small next to him, but her chin was up. "I am not selling," she said. "This was my father's building. It stays in the family." "It stays until the city condemns it," Sutton said. He took a step closer, into her space. "You are drowning. Let me pull you out." The air in the room felt wrong. It was not about load paths or stress anymore. It was pressure of another kind. I stepped forward. My boots thudded on the concrete, loud in the empty hall. Sutton turned, annoyed. His eyes went over me from my beat-up boots to my plain shirt and stopped at the folder in my hand. "Who are you?" he asked. I ignored the question. I stopped next to Meline, shoulder almost touching hers. I turned my body just enough to put myself slightly between them, not in a big show, just a quiet line. "We're busy," I said. My voice came out low and flat. "I asked you a question," Sutton said. "Who are you?" "The structural engineer," I said. "And you are standing in a hard hat zone without any gear. You need to leave." He gave a short, ugly laugh. "I am a councilman. I do not need a hard hat." "You do if you do not want a lawsuit," I said. "Insurance rules, Section 4002. I can quote them if you like. Get out." I looked right at him. No raised voice, no threat, just facts. I had watched cranes sway in bad wind. I had walked half-finished bridges in the dark. Men like Sutton did not scare me. He held my gaze longer than I expected. His smile slipped a little. He looked at Meline like he wanted her to rescue him. She stayed quiet. "Friday at noon," he said to her instead. "When the inspector fails you, my offer will drop. Think about that." Then he walked out. His shiny shoes clicked too loud on the floor. When the door slammed, the quiet that followed was heavy. Meline let out a long breath and leaned back against a steel column. She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them and looked at me. "You did not have to do that," she said. "He was standing under a loose pallet on that upper catwalk," I said, pointing up. "If it fell, the lawyers would eat you alive. I was protecting you as much as him." She huffed out a tired half-laugh and straightened. "You came back," she said. "I typed up the report. I held up the folder. Priority fixes. If you focus on the fire systems and exits, you might pass a temporary occupancy inspection." She took the folder. Her fingers brushed mine. Her hand was warm. It sent a quick spark under my skin that I tried to ignore. "Roads," she said. "I looked up what engineers like you charge. I cannot pay your rate. I cannot afford you." "I know," I said. I looked around the hall. The walls were scarred, the floor was cracked, the elevator doors were rusted, but the columns were good. The beams were thick. The bones wanted to stand. "I have vacation time at my firm," I said, staring at the nearest steel joint. "If I do not use it, I lose it. I am not very good at relaxing." She frowned. "So?" "So I am bored," I said. It was not true, but it was easier to say. "And I hate seeing good steel wasted. I will trade you." Her eyebrows rose. "Trade me what for what?" "I fix your major structural problems," I said. "You pay for materials. You feed me, real food, not frozen dinners." Her face softened a little. "You want dinner as payment." "You used to run a catering company," I said. "You said that at the bistro." She tilted her head. The first real smile I had seen from her started at the corner of her mouth and spread. "I make a lasagna that will make you cry," she said. "I do not cry," I said. "But I will test the lasagna." Her smile reached her eyes. She stuck out her hand. "Deal," she said. Her grip was firm and sure. I held on 1 second longer than I needed to. The next 2 weeks were a blur of heat, noise, and tired muscles. I showed up every morning at 6 before my actual job and came back after until midnight. My world shrank to steel, dust, and the shape of this building. I was not the engineer in a collared shirt anymore. I was the guy on the lift with a hood over my head and a welding torch in my hands. Maylene was there every day. She did not stand around pointing. She scraped paint, hauled debris, dragged shop vacs across the floor. She climbed ladders and carried lumber. When the crew she could afford went home, she stayed. One afternoon, we were working on the north wall, replacing rusted brackets with new plates. I was up on a scissor lift running a weld along a fresh steel plate, sparks flying in a bright shower. July heat pressed down through the high windows. My shirt stuck to my back under my jacket. When I lowered the lift, Maylene walked over with 2 cold water bottles. Sweat darkened her shirt at the neck and under the arms. She had dust on her cheek and a streak of rust on her forearm. "Drink," she said, handing me a bottle like it was an order. I obeyed. Half of it was gone in one pull. She tipped her head back and studied the new weld. "It is perfect," she said, "like a row of dimes. That is what my dad used to call it." "It will hold," I said. "The load will go into the column, not the wall." She looked at me instead of the steel. "You are really good at this, Rhodes," she said. "So why do you look so miserable doing it?" Quote. I froze. "I am not miserable," I said. "You are," she said. "You wear it like a backpack." Heavy all the time. She stepped closer. "What happened?" I looked away toward the river sliding past the far windows. "I made a mistake once," I said. The words tasted like rusty metal. "On a parking deck job. A math error. I caught it before the pour. If I had not, 50 cars and all the people in them would have been in the basement." She went still. "It did not happen," she said. "It almost did," I answered. I squeezed the bottle until the plastic crinkled. "That is enough. Since then I check everything 3 times. I do not sleep. I do not miss anything. I do not get to miss anything." It was more than I had told anyone in years. She did not say, "But it worked out," or "You should let it go." She just nodded slowly, like she was filing it away. "That is why you are here," she said quietly. "Because you saw what I missed, and you cannot walk away." "I am here for the lasagna," I said. She smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes. She reached out and touched my forearm, light but steady. "You can rest sometimes," she said. "The building will not fall down if you sit for 10 minutes." "It might," I said. "Then let it fall," she said, voice fierce. "I would rather lose the building than lose you." The words hit me like a blow. Nobody had ever said anything like that to me. Not my boss, not my ex, not my family. The air between us changed. I took a half step closer without thinking. Her chin lifted. Her eyes dropped once to my mouth, then back to my eyes. I wanted to kiss her. I leaned in a fraction. A crash snapped through the space, metal on metal from the loading dock. Maylene jumped. "Delivery," she said, breathless. "That is the drywall." She turned and ran toward the sound. I stayed where I was on the concrete floor, heart pounding like I had just sprinted up the stairs. I looked up at the new weld. It was solid and clean. I wished I felt that way inside. Friday came fast. The inspector was on his way. Sutton would come too. The city would decide if all this work was enough, or if the ironworks was just a pretty skeleton waiting to be knocked down. And I had no idea yet that the real fight had not even started. Inspection day felt worse than any exam I had ever taken. The ironworks was as ready as we could make it. New plates in place. Brackets reinforced. Fire exits cleared and marked. Temporary supports in the basement. I had not slept more than 4 hours in 3 nights. The inspector was a guy named Miller. Late 40s. Quiet eyes. I had seen his name on reports before. Fair, but tough. The kind who would shut a place down if it was even close to unsafe. Sutton showed up 5 minutes before Miller. Of course he did. He stood in the corner of the main hall in another expensive suit, holding a leather folder and wearing a smile that did not reach his eyes. He looked like someone waiting for bad news so he could profit from it. Maylene stayed near me. She had on clean jeans and a dark blouse, hair pulled back, clipboard in hand. Her knuckles were pale around the pen. I wanted to take her hand, but I kept mine on the rolled drawings instead. Miller walked in through the side door, helmet under his arm, safety vest bright orange. "Miss Ross," he said, shaking her hand. "Mr. Hernandez." "Inspector," I said. "Walk me through it," he said. We started in the main hall. I pointed out the new brackets, the load paths, the corrected beam sizes. I showed him the exit routes and where we had opened up the egress points. Miller listened, asked questions, tugged on bolts. His hands were sure. He did not rush. "This is good work," he said finally, running a hand down a steel column. "Solid." We moved to the basement. That was the part that made my stomach twist. The foundation had been the worst issue, old brick and stone, some settling. I had designed a series of helical piers to stabilize it, screwed deep into the soil to take the load to better ground. Miller shined his flashlight into the crawl space, studying the steel shafts and brackets. "These your design?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "We ran soil tests. Full excavation would risk the street and the riverbank. This spreads the load without that risk." He nodded slowly. "Smart," he said. "Very smart." He turned back to Malene as we climbed the stairs. "You've done a lot in 2 weeks, Miss Ross," he said. "I'm impressed." She gripped the railing a little too tight. "Does that mean?" she started. "I'm signing off on temporary occupancy," Miller said. "For limited events, up to the posted load, under ongoing monitoring." Malene let out a sharp, surprised cry. Then she threw her arms around me. For a second I froze. Then my arms came up on their own and closed around her. She fit against my chest like she had always belonged there. "We did it," she whispered into my neck. Her breath was warm on my skin. "Rhodes, we did it." Sutton stepped forward, face red. "Hold on," he said. "What about the lien?" Malene pulled back, frowning. "What lien?" she asked. Sutton pulled a sheet of paper from his folder and waved it like a flag. "Storm drain assessment from 3 years ago," he said. "Plus interest, $12,000. It's recorded against the property. City code says no permit if there's a municipal lien. You can't issue it, Inspector, not until it's paid." Miller's face went flat. He took the paper, scanned it, and sighed. "He's right," Miller said quietly. "If this is valid and unpaid, I can't finalize the permit." Malene went pale. "I didn't know," she said. "My dad never told me. I paid all the utilities. I thought we were clear." "The permit is denied," Sutton said, smile sliding back into place, "unless you can pay it today." Malene looked at me. Her eyes were shiny. Not from weakness. From pure, sharp fear. "I don't have it, Rhodes," she whispered. "I spent everything on the steel." I looked at Sutton. I wanted to drive my fist into his face, but that would not change the code or fix the problem. I looked at Miller. "Give us an hour," I said. Malene shook her head. "Rhodes, you can't." "You're not asking," I said quietly. "I'm buying us time." Miller studied my face for a moment, then nodded once. "You have 1 hour," he said, "at the clerk's office downstairs. After that, I have other sites." I walked out. On the sidewalk, I pulled out my phone and dialed my broker. "Sell the bond fund," I said as soon as he answered. There was a pause. "That's your down payment, Rhodes." "Sell it," I said. "Wire $12,000 to the city clerk, building department account. Put my name on the receipt." I hung up before he could argue. I stood on the steps and watched traffic roll by. My hands were shaking for the first time in a long time. Years of careful saving gone in one move. It did not feel like loss. It felt like a choice. 40 minutes later, I walked back into the ironworks with a stamped, official receipt in my hand. I handed it to Miller. He checked the seal, then the reference number. "Lien satisfied," he said. He signed the permit. Sutton snatched the paper from Miller, read it, and went stiff. "This is temporary," he snapped. "She'll never keep up." "Maybe," I said, "but you don't get to push her under the water today." He glared at me. For the first time, I saw something like real anger crack through his smooth act. He turned on his heel and walked out of the building. That night, we celebrated with pizza on the floor of the main hall. The lights were low, hanging from the beams. The floor was clean for once. We sat on cardboard boxes, legs stretched out, slices on paper plates. "You shouldn't have done that," Malene said quietly. She traced the grain in the wood with her fingertip, eyes on the floor. "I'll pay you back," she said. "Every dollar. Once the weddings start booking again." "I know you will," I said. "I'm not worried." She finally looked up at me. "Then why did you do it?" she asked. The light from the string bulbs caught the silver starting at her temples. It made her look softer, but not weaker, just real. "Because you fought," I said. "Most people roll over when a guy like Sutton leans on them. You didn't. You stood there and told him no." "That's worth $12,000 to you?" she asked, voice a little rough. "No," I said. "You are." Her eyes widened. The silence between us changed. She slid closer across the box. Our knees brushed. "Is this just respect?" she asked. "Or something else?" Quote. I looked at her mouth. My voice came out low. "It stopped being just respect the night you asked me to stay," I said. She smiled, small and sure. Then she leaned in. I did not move away this time. Our mouths met, soft at first. Testing. Her hand curled into my t-shirt. I cupped the back of her neck, thumb brushing the warm skin just below her hairline. The kiss deepened. The sounds of the city outside faded until there was only her breath, her taste, the feel of her leaning into me like I was solid ground. For the first time in years, the noise in my head went quiet. No numbers. No what-ifs. Just her. When we finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine, breathing fast. "Stay," she whispered. "I'm staying," I said. "I promised." For a little while it felt like that promise was going to be enough. 3 days later, the world cracked. I was at my day job, sitting in a glass conference room full of charts and suits, when my phone started buzzing. Over and over. 7 missed calls. All from Malign. I stepped out into the hallway and called her back. She answered on the first ring. "Rhodes," she sobbed. "It's the elevator. The freight elevator." It fell. All the air left my lungs. "Was anyone in it?" I forced out. "No," she said. "Thank God." But it crashed into the pit. It hit the main support column, on the south wall. The whole side is sagging. Miller is here. He's red-tagging the building. He says it's unsafe. He's shutting us down. For good. I did not remember driving there. 1 minute I was in that hallway. The next I was standing outside the ironworks. Yellow caution tape wrapped around the entrance. A city truck was parked out front. Miller stood by it, talking low to 2 uniformed officers. Milling sat on a crate near the loading dock, arms wrapped around her body. She looked empty. I walked past the tape and into the main hall. The damage hit me hard. The freight elevator car lay twisted in the basement pit. The main south column above it was sheared through, the steel bent and torn. The roof over that side drooped a few inches. Cracks spidered through the brick. I climbed down, flashlight in hand. I checked the cables. They were not frayed from age. They were cut. Clean. I saw marks on the brake assembly that did not belong there. My stomach turned. I climbed back up. Milleen was watching me like she already knew what I was going to say. "Someone did this," I said. "This was not an accident." "It doesn't matter," she said. Her voice was flat. "The column is gone. The roof is sinking. Miller says it's a total loss. He's recommending condemnation. Sutton already called with another offer. Just for the land." Quote, "You don't have to take it," I said. Her eyes flashed with a tired anger. "Look at it," she said, pointing at the sag. "It's broken. I can't fix a sheared column. I'm out of money. I'm out of time. I am done, Rhodes. I am so tired of fighting." "I can fix it," I said. "Stop," she said. "You can't save everyone. You can't save everything. Not this time." She shoved at my chest, not hard, but enough to make me feel it. "Go home, Rhodes," she said. "Go back to your safe life. Leave this alone." She turned and walked away toward her car. She did not look back. I stood there under the sagging roof, the smell of rust and dust in my nose, my heart pounding. She was right. The damage was bad. Any sane engineer would walk away. I went home. I sat in my dark apartment, elbows on my knees, staring at my hands. They were scarred and burned and strong, hands made to hold things up. I stood. I grabbed my keys. There was still one thing I knew how to do better than anyone else: fix what everyone else had already given up on. I drove to a site on the edge of town where my friend Andy was foreman. Steel frames rose out of the dirt. A crane sat parked in the corner of the lot like a sleeping giant. Andy was in the trailer with plans spread out on the table. He looked up when I walked in. "You look like hell," he said. "I need a favor," I said. "A big one, and I need the crane." He frowned. "Rhodes, what did you do?" "I did not do anything," I said. "Someone cut a main column at the ironworks. The building could fail. I need to shore it up before it hurts someone." He stared at me for a long second, then nodded once. "I can spare the crane tonight," he said, "and a small crew. But it has to be clean and legal. I am not losing my license for you." "It will be legal," I said. "I will make sure of it." I drove back to the ironworks and walked the outside with a flashlight. The sag in the roof looked worse in the early dark. If the south wall went, it could pull the roof toward the street or the river. It would not pick a safe direction. I called Inspector Miller. He answered on the second ring. "Miller." "It is Rhodes," I said. "The freight elevator did not fail on its own. The cables were cut. The brake assembly was tampered with. A main column is compromised. The building could fail outward. If we wait until morning, people on the sidewalk are at risk." He was quiet for a moment. "You are saying this is an imminent hazard," he said. "Yes," I said. "And I'm asking for permission to shore it now, under your authority." More silence. Then I heard him blow out a breath. "Do not touch anything," he said. "I am coming." He showed up 30 minutes later in jeans and a city jacket. A patrol car rolled in behind him. 2 officers got out, one carrying a camera. Miller climbed down into the pit, checked the cut column, and looked at the cable ends. He climbed back up and met my eyes. "You are right," he said. This was no accident. He pulled a form from his clipboard, wrote fast, and pressed it against the hood of his truck to sign. "Emergency shoring permit," he said. "Limited work only, no more than we need to make it safe. I will stand here the whole time. You go beyond that, I shut it down and you are finished in this city." "Understood." Quote, "Understood," I said. He taped the permit to the front gate where anyone could see it. The officers took photos of the damage and the permit. I pointed up at the security camera above the loading dock. "Pull that footage before it is wiped," I said. "Check plates on any trucks that were here." The sergeant nodded. "We will." Andy arrived with the crane and 3 guys from his crew. They all looked tired but ready. "We got your call," he said. "Let's do this." The next few hours were a blur of noise and focus. We set temporary posts under the sagging beams to hold the load. We cut out the broken parts of the column. The crane moved a new steel H-beam into place through a gap in the roof we cut open. I was on the radio with the operator, giving inch-by-inch directions. "Left 2 inches, I said. "Down slow. Easy. Hold." We eased the beam into the shoes I had bolted to the foundation and the beam above. When it settled, the roof line straightened. Just a little. Enough. I grabbed the welding leads with hands that felt steady for the first time all day. "Let me do the welds," I said. Nobody argued. I laid the bead around the base and top of the beam. Clean, deep, no gaps, no room for weakness. When I finished, I checked the load again. The roof sat level. The supports were tight. By the time we were done, the sky was turning gray. My arms shook from the strain. My eyes burned with smoke and no sleep. I sat down on the concrete, back against a column, breathing hard. The front doors opened. Meline walked in wearing a coat over sleep clothes and old sneakers. Her hair was pulled up in a messy knot. She stopped just inside the hall. Her eyes moved from the new column to the shoring posts to the crane backing out. Then they found me. She walked toward me slowly. The closer she got, the more her face changed. Shock first, then something else. Something softer. She dropped onto her knees in front of me on the dusty floor and took my filthy hands in hers. "You fixed it," she whispered. I told you I check my work, I said. My voice came out rough. I do not miss things. You broke into my building, she said, tears in her eyes. Permit is on the gate, I said. Miller signed it. Ask him. She glanced at the inspector standing near the door. He lifted the clipboard in a little wave. If you want this place standing, he said, let him work. I watched the whole thing. Malene looked back at me. Then she did something that stole whatever air I had left. She lifted my hand and pressed her mouth to my dirty palm. She held it there for one steady heartbeat. You are the most stubborn, impossible, wonderful man I have ever met, she said. Come on, I said as I stood, pulling her up with me. We have a hearing. The council chamber was full. Neighbors, city staff, a few reporters. Sutton sat at one table with his lawyer, looking annoyed. Malene and I sat at another. I still had grease on my hands. There was a bruise on my arm from a slipped tool. I did not care. Inspector Miller went first. He spoke in a calm, clear voice about what we had found. Cut cables, tool marks, a sheared column. He described the emergency permit, the crane, the shoring, the new beam. He handed over photos and stamped drawings. Based on my inspection at 7:10 this morning, he said, the structure is stable. Not barely. It exceeds the minimum safety standard. I remove my recommendation to condemn. The room buzzed. The council chair banged his gavel. And the cause of the failure? He asked. The police are still investigating, Miller said. But they did recover bolt cutters from a vehicle connected to Mr. Sutton. And the security footage shows a truck matching his company's registration on site before the incident. That part is not my report. That is the officer's job. Sutton shifted in his seat. His lawyer leaned in and whispered fast. The chair looked at Miller again. Your professional opinion, Inspector? The building can remain open under the conditions in my report, Miller said. It is safe. The chair nodded once. Then the condemnation order is rescinded, he said. The ironworks may remain in operation. The gavel came down. The sound echoed like a hammer on steel. People burst into noise. Some clapped. Someone whistled. Malene covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders shook. I touched her arm lightly. Come on, I said. Let's get some air. We stepped out onto the front steps of City Hall. The sun was bright. The air felt strange, too fresh after the dust and dark of the night. You saved it, she said. You saved everything. We saved it, I said. She turned to face me. Her eyes were still wet, but clear. I cannot pay you, she said again. Not for the beam, the crane, the bond money. I will work the rest of my life and still not be square. I do not want your money, I said. She swallowed. Then what do you want, Rhodes? You have given me everything and asked for nothing. That scares me. I took a folded paper from my pocket. It was wrinkled from being carried around all night and typed up after a napkin draft. A simple partnership agreement. I want 49%, I said. I want to be your partner. You run the events, the food, the people. I run the structure, the safety, the repairs. We put both our names on the building. We put both our names on the life that comes with it. She unfolded the paper with shaking hands. Her eyes moved over the words. Partners, she said quietly. Partners, I said, and I want more than that. Her eyes lifted. I want to go home with you at night, I said. I want to be the one you call when something cracks. I want to eat your lasagna on Sundays. I want to stay. Her lips parted. Tears spilled over and slid down her cheeks, but she did not look away. You want to stay, she whispered. Very much, I said. She dug into her bag, pulled out a pen, and pressed the paper against my chest to sign. Her hand shook once, then steadied. Deal, she said. She capped the pen, dropped it back in her bag, then grabbed the front of my dusty shirt in both hands and pulled me down. She kissed me on the steps of City Hall, in full daylight, with people watching. It did not feel like a show. It felt like a promise. It tasted like relief, like victory, like home. When we broke apart, she was still holding my shirt. Come on, she said, eyes bright. Partner, we have a freight elevator to redesign. I groaned. Can we sleep first? No, she said, lacing her fingers with mine. You can sleep later. We have work to do. I squeezed her hand. I was tired. I was broke. I had dust in my hair and burns on my hands. But for the first time in my life, I was not just holding up a building. I was building something with someone who would stand in the broken parts with me and hand me a wrench. People talk about love like magic. To me, it felt simpler and stronger than that. Love was sitting at the wrong table on a failed blind date. Love was hearing her say, "Your eyes tell me you want to stay." And finally being brave enough to answer, "I do."